Welcome to Baseball and Coffee, episode 28. Wow, 28. That's crazy. What's up, Aaron? What's going on?
I was thinking about that too when the other one posted. I was like, wow, we've recorded a lot.
I know, right?
Um,
How you doing this Saturday?
Doing well. It's sunny and nice. We went to an outdoor festival this morning. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
It's good to be out and around. I was outside, which is nice. Kind of removes the concern of being around people. And it was warm, but it wasn't insufferably hot. So it was good to be out.
Right on.
And yeah, definitely in baseball mode now.
What you got
I'm
on?
watching the Padres and Brewers, which is the game I really wanted to see today, which was, as we talked about in the last pod, watching these two young lefties go at it.
Ashby and Gore.
Yep.
It's better than watching Marco Gonzalez surrender a 3-run home run to Adolis Garcia. At least I got a steal from Julio, but yeah, a little depressing. So this episode, we're going to do a couple of player deep dives. We're going to talk about our MVP, Cy Young, and Rookie of the Year for each league up till now. Aaron will ask his open forum question from last week, and he'll open some cards as well. You got any coffee thoughts, coffee story for me?
So I've had a couple coffees today. One is when we went to this, it was called Veg Fest. It's the festival we went to. I got a coffee from a food truck, and I was thinking about the conversation we had when you don't know the quality of the coffee, you just get a brewed coffee. And I remember all I thought was, just please don't let it be a Keurig, because I've had that a couple of times happen to me where I've gone to places and I order just coffee and I see them go back there and like put the capsule in. It was decent though. I don't think it was a Keurig. Usually I can tell. And then when I got home, it was pretty warm today. I made iced coffee, just traditional in my basket brewer. My method is I'll take half the weight and cut the water down by 50%. And then I fill the vessel, the pot, with that amount of ice. So I'm keeping the same ratio,
Right.
just splitting my liquid weight between equal ice and water, and just brew that. So damn it, another opposite field ground ball for Grisham. It's good hitting. Sometimes I hate the shift so much. You don't see the hits or think about the ones that help your pitcher. You only see the ones that hurt them. And the ball goes right to where the shortstop should be.
Right.
Sometimes it's hard to swallow. Anyway, so yeah, that's my coffee today. Brewed some iced coffee, had a non-Keurig brewed coffee.
Nice.
Good stuff.
It's interesting because in Walla Walla, I talk about the roastery a lot, and they do a pretty good job. They roast kind of all over the spectrum, which I appreciate. And then they're pretty open about where on the spectrum, each coffee is. But there's a younger Asian kid who has a trailer in downtown Walla Walla. And I don't know what the trailer's name is, but his name I think is Josh. And he's bringing in coffee from Colorado, from Portland, has got a really beautiful Malconic grinder, and does an amazing job. And so it's funny because, I always think on a truck, I think about power, I think about, water quality. There's all sorts of things that can go wrong on a truck with regards to, producing beautiful coffee, but he does a really amazing job. So you made me think of him with your story. I hadn't thought about him in a little bit just because I don't get downtown much. The only other thought I have is I've got another bag of El Salvador that's been really beautiful. And what's interesting is anyone else that tries it, especially if they try it with a little bit of cream or sugar, say that it's weak. And what I've found is that that's a common theme with any sort of like delicate single origin coffee, is that if you don't brew it correctly and drink it without any kind of mixer, people feel like you're making a weak cup of coffee. And the reality is that single origin coffees just don't hold up to cream and sugar quite the same way as a lot of others do. But just a funny thought, because I drink my coffee black, and so I don't really notice it all that much. But that was the comment with the El Salvador.
Interesting.
So player deep dives. We don't. So full disclosure, we don't tell each other who our player deep dives are before the podcast. So we're always surprised by who the other person picks. Kind of the highlight of the podcast for me personally. Who's your hitter?
Here is Jurickson Profar.
Uh-huh. So what'd you find? How excited are you that you traded for him?
Pretty excited. He's a player that I have a real affection for. I think you do as well.
Mhm.
You know, he was the former #1 overall prospect of the Texas Rangers, and had a pretty career-altering shoulder injury. I don't know the exact nature of it. I just know the arc of his career seems like it was like indelibly changed
Right.
with that injury. And I still wonder to this day sometimes if you look at like his max exit and his hard hit rates, how much of that can be attributed to the fact that again that he had that injury.
Right.
But I wanted to look at him because I think he's a player, especially when you play in a deep league, that can be a little bit underappreciated because he doesn't have a super high ceiling, either in steals or home runs. However, looking at his year-over-year results, he posts pretty consistent ever since his 2018 year, his last year in Texas, and then when he went to Oakland the following year, he's consistently posted anywhere between a 730 to a 770, as high as a 790 OPS, driven by his strong on base skills. And he really has immaculate plate discipline and bat control. His zone contact is consistently above 85%, which is league average is 82.
Right.
He's gotten as high as 89. His walk rate's consistently 9 to 12%. He's 12.5 this year. He's only striking out 16.4% of the time. None of those numbers I found were, really outside of his career norms. So there's not anything he's doing this year that seems appreciably different. But again, because his ceiling is capped with his power, his slug is never quite high enough where he is going to post like over 800 OPS. But he's just consistently performing. And he has a certain element, I think, that's hard to qualify on the Savant page in terms of, I think he's just kind of a clutch guy. He just has that ability to come up with a timely hit. And that's something that's really hard to put your finger on. But I think it's something that if you're rooting for the team he plays for, or just rooting for him individually, he's just really a fun player to own. Right now, he has multi-position eligibility from when he used to play the infield. I think he's pretty much settled in as an outfielder. So that, next year his value might be limited a little bit more. Right now, I can play him in the infield or outfield, and I don't think that's going to be the case always.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, just great. Really great eye. And drives his walk rate. He doesn't swing and miss. His 83rd percentile in whip percentage, and yeah, just great back control. Good enough speed. His sprintile speed is not. It's not red, but at the same time, he can steal. He's a very savvy base runner.
Right.
So yeah, I did trade for him, as you mentioned. I needed a second baseman with Segura going down, and just a player I enjoy rostering, enjoy rooting for, and I like the way he plays. Love his approach. And again, I was hoping to bring something and say like, hey, this has changed for him, but I was just honestly surprised at how consistent his performance is. His batting average has fluctuated, which I didn't really find a huge BABIP reason for that. But beyond that fluctuation, he's just very consistent ever since 2019.
He's a player that like I said before in previous podcasts, I love him. I think he's a player that I expected stardom from. I think he's one who was robbed of stardom because he got injured. And so he's surviving on, instincts and skill. And he really does lack athleticism at this point in time. Whereas when he first came up, he was, a raw athlete with really great instincts. And so we've seen across all sports, you see players who have, who are explosive and have the instinct, who are slotted as superstars, who kind of withstand career-threatening or difficult injuries and become average or slightly above average players just basically on guile. And I think Profar is one of those guys. I really do appreciate him too. I think as you take his infield eligibility away, he's not going to be quite the same player as he is this year in fantasy, but still valuable. Sorry, I was distracted. Jesse Winker hit a 446-foot home run off of Glen Otto just now to make the game 3-2. Can't help but be distracted by the Mariners there, and hopefully Winker is kind of out of his power slump and starting to hit again. Julio's coming up as well right now, so if I'm distracted, that's why. My player is one Tommy Edman of the St. Louis Cardinals. I wanted to know why. So Edman was a player that I rated, I think, somewhere between 13 and 16 at second base coming into the year. Not anybody that I really expected much from. I understood that he would feel a need for steals if you had one, but didn't expect any power or any really much of anything else out of him if he was rostered to start the year. He's pretty much a middle infielder at this point. When he first came up, he played outfield and basically every position but catcher and first base. At this point, he's a second baseman and shortstop. He's a switch hitter, 5'10", 180. He's 27 years old. He's drafted in the 6th round by the Cardinals in the 2016 draft out of Stanford, and he'll be a free agent in 2026. He also won a Gold Glove in 2021, and I think that is important because if you're a really good defender, it guarantees a spot in the lineup, and it means that you'll get plate appearances from that player in fantasy. He took over as the starter at second base in 2021 with the departure of Colton Wong. He played second base for the Cardinals until Nolan Gorman, came up, and now he's the regular shortstop. One other interesting fact about Tommy Edman is he's half Korean. His mother was born in South Korea. So I always find that interesting. So Fangraphs, when he was a prospect, rated him a 55 hit, 30 game power, 40 raw, 55 speed, 45 field, 50 throw, and a future value of 40, which is pretty much utility infielder. They didn't see much power in his game, and felt like he had a decent hit tool and decent speed, but wasn't really going to do much. So as of present, in 2022, in 219 plate appearances, he has 4 home runs, 41 runs, 22 RBIs, 14 steals, and a triple slash of 281, 353, 413. So OPS of 768, walk rate of about 9%, K rate of about 16%. He started the season hitting either in the 6 or the 9 hole, but as of April 23rd, he's hit leadoff for the Cardinals, which is a really, really good offense. His launch angle is 9.2 degrees, which is in line with 2021, which I feel like is optimal for a player like Tommy Edman, just because he doesn't have a ton of power. You want to see a player like that with speed and not a ton of power, get the ball on the ground and get on base. And he also plays in a big park in St. Louis. So his line drive is down, his ground balls are up, which I think is a good thing for a player of his speed. He's hitting more balls to center. He's trying to pull the ball less. But to me, he's fascinating because, I can read off a ton of stats, but he's performing a lot better this year than he has in the past. And he's gone from being a, back end 12 team, 15 team leagues, second base shortstop to someone that you can prioritize as a 10 homer, 30 steal leadoff guy who is potentially going to have 100 runs. I currently rank him number 9. But if you are a team number 9 at second base, but if you're a team that needs stolen bases and you have a deficiency elsewhere, I would rank him as high as number 7. The other thing about Edman in a dynasty league is that he really isn't competing with anybody for time at short until at least 2024. Paul DeYoung, Brendan Donovan, and Edmundo Sosa are the 3 that can play shortstop for the Cardinals currently. And the only player in the pipeline that can threaten his time at all is Mason Wynn, and his ETA for me is 2024. Mm-hmm. He's also a really good, like I said, he's a really good defensive player. So from a real life standpoint, he's a Fangraphs win, 3 to 4 win player. And I could see him reaching 5 or 6 wins at his peak. He's a player that as a Mariners fan, I would absolutely love for the Mariners to roster. I think he's kind of the modern day Ben Zobrist in some ways, because he can play every position, but first and catcher, and probably in a pinch, he could still play first. And he's going to provide you with a slightly above average offensive profile. But it was fun to dig into him. He's much better against lefties than he is against righties. He's an aggressive hitter. His first pitch swing percentage is 27.4%, which is pretty high. In 21, it was 21.3. So he's a little more aggressive this year than last year. And he hits off speed really well. He's hitting 378 with the 444 slug against off speed this season. But just a really fascinating pitch or player to dig into a little bit. And I just wanted to know why it is that Tommy Edman is performing at the level that he is.
It's interesting to me, like when I actually looked at him because I was trying to find like a comp for Profar or just some other players to better understand what his skill set is. And Edman was one of the ones I looked at, and his max exit, I think it was like 89 percentile. And
89, yeah.
Really, I mean, that really portends more power. It kind of gives you a sense of the ceiling. And his zone contact was in the low 90s, high 80s. So that's a really interesting combination. And my criticism of him coming into the year was his lack of walks and lack of, his lack of barrels, essentially. His barrel rate mirrored what Merrifield in a lot of ways. So yeah, just see that more power. And I honestly, when I heard he was moving to short to make room, potentially for Gourmand, and just was, the fact that he athletically can handle that position for a team that values defense, to me was impressive as well, because he's always been played at second or outfield for them. So yeah, it definitely seems like a player who I think more highly of based on what he's done this year than I did prior to 2022.
His, max exit is, for me, is a little dangerous when I'm looking at, if I see a huge difference in max exit versus average exit, hard hit and barrel, I wonder if there's one hard hit ball that he just kind of hit the jackpot with, because his average exit is 39th percentile, which is 88.5 miles an hour. It's the best of his career, but it's still 39th percentile. Hard hit is 41st and barrel is 38th. But to your point, someone who is, I think before the season started, we kind of called him like a poor man's Whit Merrifield in some way.
Yeah, we absolutely.
He's a much, much better hitter than Merrifield has ever really demonstrated. And that's not to slight Merrifield's, 200 plus hit seasons, but he did it in like 750 plate appearances. And so I think Edman, on kind of, if you compare the two, is a better hitter, pure hitter. The other thing interesting about him is, we talked about makeup a little bit last podcast, and I said that it's not something that I really value very much. But on the flip side, you look at Tommy Edman, and he's a Stanford grad. I was reading his wiki page, and his family has accomplished a ton. His siblings have accomplished a ton from an academic standpoint. And a player like that, I think at times can get away with playing a position like shortstop, even if he's not a natural shortstop, because of being able to think through what to do at the position pre-pitch. And, I know that teams will give them information to be able to position them correctly, but there's more to it than that. And Edman just seems like the type of player that's getting absolutely the most out of his potential. And I'm quite frankly surprised by the results that he has up to this point in the season. He's a player that I wish I would have dug into a little bit more before the season started, because I think I could have had him at a decent price and had a really, really productive player. But I really enjoyed this particular player deep dive, and I'm excited to see what he's capable of moving forward. Any other thoughts on Tommy Edman?
No.
Cool. Where would you rank him right now at second base, or where did you rank him at second base? Do you remember?
It's good. I had moved him up quite a bit. I think I had him fourth or fifth.
Awesome. Good stuff.
I was actually trying to find my notes from last time, and I could not find them. But anyway, yeah, I think I had him fourth or fifth.
Right on.
I know he was a big mover for me. Sorry, I just checked on Ronzi, and they made an error behind him and a lot of run to score. So both my pitchers pitched really well, and both of them are probably going to lose. So it's always a blast. Fantasy is so hard sometimes.
Right. Who's your pitcher?
My pitcher was Tyler Wells.
Nice.
He's a player that I've flirted with all of the season. He's really pops on his pitching model. So for reference, so far this year he has posted a 105 stuff plus, which for a starter, 95 is kind of average for stuff. So he's well above average. Location plus is 108 and pitching plus is 110. So just to give you an example, so Tyler Wells having a pitching plus is having 110 is better than Shane McClanahan, Joe Musgrove, and Sandy Alcantara, to name a few. But that's just a pitching model, right? It's not results. And so the reason why I wanted to deep dive into him was first and foremost to understand, like, why is he not striking more people out? Because looking at, I'm going to pull up his game logs here because I had it saved. So if you look at his month of, sorry, just one more second. There it is. So the month of April, he came out of the month of April with a 1.38 whip and a 5.5 ERA, right? It's not that impressive. So again, I had rostered him in that month of April. As my roster shifted, I moved on from him. And then the month of May, however, he posted a 3.7 ERA and a 1.08 whip. And he had, but he only had 18 strikeouts and 30 innings. So he's just not getting any swing and miss. And he plays for the Orioles, so he's obviously not helping you too much in the wins category. However, those are pretty sharp ratios, and I wanted to understand why is he not striking more people out? So what I found was looking at Savant, his arsenal actually compares quite favorably to Luis Garcia of the Astros. They both have a 4-pitch mix. He throws 4 pitches, he being Wells, at least 10% of the time. So he has that deep mix that we talked about that we value. Someone who's not just a 2-pitch pitcher. So the 4-seam slider, changeup, and curve. And his 4-seam actually has plus vertical velocity, or not velocity, movement, plus vertical movement, which we want to see from a 4-seam. That really helps keep it off the barrel. And it's his run value with it is a -2, which is actually not bad for a fastball. Usually fastballs get hit a lot harder than that, and it has plus spin as well. So he has good command. He has a good 4-seam to build his arsenal. He has a deep arsenal. But what I found when I looked at him compared to Luis Garcia, he's just not getting the swings and misses. So I looked at Garcia's same 4-pitch mix. He throws a cutter instead of a slider, but so you got 4-seam cutter, changeup, curveball, whereas Wells' 4-seam slider, curveball, changeup. Garcia has 3 pitches with over a 35% whiff rate. His cutter, change, and curve are all above 35, whereas Wells, he has only one that's above 30, and it's his changeup. It's 30.8. His curveball and his slider are both sub 30 whiff rate. That, of course, results in lower K rate. And so, yeah, it's interesting, beyond that, just seeing that he's not getting swings and misses, it's be interesting to see if it's a sequencing thing. He's also transitioning from the bullpen to starter. So maybe he's still working on just refining these pitches and learning how to use them deeper in games. But he's still someone, again, that continues to intrigue me because he has a lot of the skills that I value in terms of good velocity, good command, and that he's just not getting the swings and misses. And so, for a fantasy asset, if you can't help in strikeouts and you're really not going to help in wins very often, it makes him hard to roster despite him posting very good ratios in the month of May. And again, based on these skills, I would expect him to continue to be a ratios asset. But I would, especially in a head-to-head format like we play in our home league, not being able to help out in these 2 categories really limits him. So he's going to be someone, my ultimate decision was I'm probably going to continue to watch him from afar and not pick him up. But we did pick him up in GGFBI as a low bid just to, add to the bench and see. But again, just going to watch from afar and see, does he start to get more swing and miss with his arsenal?
Right. is there, I wonder, because I think about Garcia, and Garcia, there's a little bit of deception with his delivery. And, obviously he's a really effective pitcher. He's almost falls in that, like Dylan Cease. The reason why we targeted Cease coming into 22 was he had a above 40% whiff rate on 3 different pitches. And if Garcia has above 35 on 3 different pitches, there's a similar reason to target him.
Yeah.
But I wonder about Wells, if there's a lack of deception or a lack of, there's something that allows, if there's that much movement, that much velocity on his pitches, and hitters are still picking up what he's throwing, there's something going on that's not traceable with statistics or numbers, with batter's ability to pick up what he's throwing that might be leading to what's going on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I appreciate the deep dive, because he's someone that I'll target to watch on TV to see why it is that he's getting hit in the way that he is. It's something that's not quantifiable, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, I was hoping to find it. I can't really say that I did. I just think it's interesting that, again, his pitching model, and then go to Savant, and it's saying, hey, it will tell you based on velocity and movement, here are pitchers who are similar.
Right.
Luis Garcia had the highest similarity to him in terms of velocity and movement on the physical characteristics of his pitches. And you look at the whiff rates that Garcia is getting, so it's just really interesting to see. And again, because he's in that transitional stage of his career, going from the bullpen to being a starter, it just gives me, I guess, more of a patience, or just let's continue to watch and see how does he evolve. Because again, the pitch shapes and the characters of the pitch say there is potential there. Right.
He sounds like a good flyer to me, like someone who is, like we've done in TGFBI, is good to keep on the bench, see how it plays out, maybe give him another month to get his feet underneath him for sure. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I think we did something similar with our pitcher deep dives. So my pitcher deep dive is Gregory Soto, the closer for the Detroit Tigers. I've watched him, a number of times in the Tigers condensed games, closing games out. And he's got the blue hair, and he's got the wild delivery, and he's throwing 98. And I don't know. I've always thought of him as, my only real kind of knowledge of him is that he's a flame-throwing left-handed closer with very little control. And I just wanted to know more about him, which is why I decided he was going to be my pitcher deep dive. And so he's 6'1", 234, he's 27 years old, signed out of Dominican Republic by the Tigers in 2012. He'll be a free agent in 26. He debuted in 19. He was added to the 40-man in 17, was a starter in the Tigers minor league pitcher of the year in 17. He started 7 games for the Tigers in 2019, but he became a reliever exclusively in 2020. In 21, he was named to the All-Star team. At the time, he was 4-1 with a 2.18 and 38 Ks in 33 innings. He finished with 18 saves and a 3.39 ERA, but he had a 1.35 WHIP. Interestingly, last year, he had a 27.5% K rate. This year, as of now, he has an 18.9% K rate. So K rate is way down. Last year, I had a 14.5% walk rate. This year, it's 10.8. So walk rate is down. It's still not acceptable, but it's down much more than it was last year. His launch angle has gone up from 11.1 degrees to 15.5 degrees. His barrel percentage is almost doubled, and his hard hit rate is up 8%. So he's giving up a lot more fly balls than his ground ball rate went from 45% to 37.5. So his fly ball rate is up, his barrel rate is up, his hard hit percentage is up, his launch angle is up, but he's walking fewer batters and he's striking out fewer batters. And so as I started to learn these statistics, I was like, what the hell's going on with Gregory Soto? And how does he have 10 saves already, right? So what I found was that, he's throwing his fastball this year 81.8% of the time, which is much higher than it was last year. He's got, and he's splitting it between his sinker and his four seam. Both were registering as fastball on Fangraphs. He's got more movement on both, and he's only throwing his slider at this point 18% of the time. His swinging strike rate is down 1.5%, and his called strike plus swinging strike percentage is down 6.7% over last year. So he's like in the Mark Melancon category for me, meaning he's like a tier 4 closer, which is a closer that is going to get you saves because of the rest of the bullpen and the role that he's been given. But his metrics don't give you any reason to think that he's going to be the closer for very long. And if he is, it's because he's lucky. His average exit velocity is 92.6 miles an hour, which is 3rd percentile in baseball. His hard hit, 22nd percentile. Barrel percentage, 8th percentile. K percentage, 29th percentile. Walk percentage, 24th. Chase, 23rd. So he doesn't look like a very good pitcher, right? And so what's interesting is his slider was his best pitch in 21, and it had a negative 11 run value. And it's his worst pitch in 22 with a +2 run value. And his sinker was his worst pitch in 21, and it's his best pitch in 22. So I read all these stats, and I literally read them to say to you, Aaron, like, what do you make of Soto? And like, I don't know what the hell's going on with him. The other stat that I should give is his chase contact in 21 was 43.3%. And this year it's 63.4%. So it's up 20.1%. So when batters chase Gregory Soto's pitches, they're making contact 20% more of the time than they did last year. Is this someone you would roster? Is this someone that you would consider? He's got, like I said, he's got what, 11 saves already this year, 10 saves this year, 1 hold, and a 2.04 ERA. His ERA is 2.04. His xFIP is 5.62. From a fantasy perspective, what do you do with a pitcher like that?
I guess that would be, what's your tolerance? I think a lot of GMs would just take the saves, because he does have pretty secure hold on the job. They have used Fulmer a couple times in the 9th, but I think that's been more workload and less so a matchup space bullpen. And I think the rarity, I guess, of the low volume of teams that actually name a closer and say this is our closer is so few that security adds value.
Right.
Because I think from a skill standpoint, there isn't a lot of reason to be excited about Soto. I think especially if you care about walks and command, which most relievers have suboptimal command. That's why they're relievers, right?
But fantasy wise, we should care about walks and command.
Absolutely. So I think it just depends on the kind of construction that you have. Again, I think he has value because he has the role. Everything that you said about his xFIP, and so he's basically been fortunate. But his manager said, like, hey, he's the closer, so he's going to get the 9th. So, for me, I would not be comfortable having him in my bullpen. I would try to sell high and try to move him, because he would make me exceptionally nervous. Because you want to have guys that have skills that that they're in the role because they have the skills and not just because they have the role. Like you said, in that Melancon category, right? He has less than optimal closer skill set, but he has the role. So you're going to get that categorical bump. I think Soto falls in that same category.
Right. So before we wrap up Soto, we'll take a quick break and I'll give my final thoughts on his blue hair and why I think he's the closer in Detroit. And we'll move on to our awards for the first quarter of the season.
Super.
So what I wonder is, and this is I feel like this is a legitimate question. If Gregory Soto didn't throw 98 and wasn't as demonstrative as he is and didn't have blue hair extensions, would he still be the closer in Detroit? Because you look at his numbers, you look at the expected numbers, and he's not all that different than like a Mark Melancon type, right? And so, I like to just look at numbers and not think about the other stuff, but sometimes it plays into what role the player actually has. What do you think about that idea that, we have this idea of what a closer should be? And there's something about Soto that is colorful enough and demonstrative enough. I wonder if that contributes to him holding on to the role despite the underlying metrics that we found.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they had someone better, they would use him. I think he's probably, from, the velocity from the left side, it is a tough matchup for a lot of guys. The slider, his stuff plus is 108, which honestly is not amazing for
Right.
for a closer. His pitching plus is only 99, so it's sub league average.
Mhm.
But that it is a tough matchup, and to get a 98 from the left side in the ninth inning, it's a look that the team hasn't seen the whole game. So yeah, I think he's replaceable. When they have someone better, they're going to be in that role.
I think he benefits from pitching in Detroit as well, right? And
Yeah.
maybe that's part of why he's become such a fly ball pitcher is they've encouraged him to throw pitches that are more likely to result in fly balls because they are in Detroit and it's such a huge pitcher's park. I was fascinated because he's got a great ERA and he's got 10 saves, but I knew he wasn't actually pitching very well. And I wanted to know in more detail what was going on with him. But I enjoyed that deep dive quite a bit.
Yeah, interesting.
He'd be a good.
He's not a player that I know a lot about just because I would never consider rostering him. So I don't spend a lot of time on him.
Right. I think he's if you have the luxury of having a third closer and, maybe an SPRP in our league with 5 relievers, an SPRP that gets you holds, and you could have 3 holds guys and 3 saves guys, then maybe he's your third saves guy. But outside of that, I don't know that I would want to roster him.
Yeah.
All right.
So I have a humorous side note before we go to the next section. During the break, I was texting the manager in our dynasty league who rosters Mackenzie Gore.
Uh-huh.
And I was going to send him a note and say, hey, your guy's winning the battle. And I accidentally sent it to my boss's boss at work.
You're kidding.
No. Thankfully, there was no profanity or anything.
That's hilarious.
Both of their names start with K.
Right.
And on my MacBook, each person just has like a letter next to their name.
Yeah.
So
that's really funny.
Yeah, be careful out there.
Exactly. Always.
He responded back to me and said he being Gore is starting to change my mind about keeping starting pitchers.
Huh.
So
starting pitching is so valuable now compared to even last year, given the change in the game. I don't get it. I think that they were undervalued already. And I think even more so now, starting pitchers, especially starting pitchers that can go deep into games, are hugely valuable.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah, I appreciate someone's willing to change their perspective and also just getting invested in a young pitcher is fun.
For sure. I don't love Gore, but yeah, I agree. All right, top 3 AL MVP. Who do you have? Or your top
3?
Do you have top?
I
3?
thought I was
pick one.
I thought I was doing good to pick a runner up. I was like, man, I'm bringing the game today.
All right, winner and runner up. I picked 3. Winner and runner up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would do MVP first. AL.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge is my MVP.
Huh? Who's number 2?
Jose Ramirez.
I got him reversed.
Got him reversed.
Make your case.
My case is, I think, despite all the hype they get, if you look at the Yankees lineup, outside of the one dimension that Stanton brings, their lineup is actually not that great. and yet they have the best record in the American League to this point. And I think the year that Judge is having at the plate from a power perspective is just providing them with confidence and stability. And I just think he's been the highest performer. I didn't see anyone else. Ramirez has 52 RBIs, which is pretty amazing. But from a strikeout and walk perspective, he strikes out less as well compared to Judge. But I mean, ultimately, the Guardians are a middling team. But Ramirez is, having a really good first half so far, and is certainly worthy.
Mhm.
I weight team performance a lot when I think about something like MVP.
Right. It's interesting because I did not, in my head, I didn't even think about team performance. It really didn't register for me. I think it should. It certainly does when I think about basketball, right? But Ramirez was my MVP. I think that, so Ramirez's triple slash is 295, 393, 631. Judge is 316, 384, 679. So Judge has an OPS of 1.063 and Ramirez has an OPS of 1.024. So they're pretty comparable from an OPS perspective.
Yeah.
Judge has 20 homers, Ramirez has 13. Judge has 42 runs, Ramirez 32, which I think is a team context thing. Ramirez has 52 ribbies and Judge has 41. Ramirez has 7 steals versus 3 for Judge. What put it over the top for me was, so Ramirez has a 13.6% walk rate and Judge 10.6. So, 3% difference, but not enough to tip the scales. Jose Ramirez strikes out 7.3% of the time versus Judge 25.8. And what that says to me is that Jose Ramirez is putting the ball in play over and over and over again. And you look at his Savant page and his average exit velocity is 40th percentile, right? His max exit is 82nd, his hard hit is 50th, barrel is 60th, but he's putting the ball in play so often that he's still putting up incredible numbers despite not hitting the ball all that hard. I also think there's his success is going to fluctuate with his luck. And we've seen that in previous seasons with Jose Ramirez, where his BABIP is a direct reflection of what his average is because he puts the ball in play so often compared to other players. What put him over the top for me from a fantasy perspective, what put him over the top for me was his steals. From a real life perspective, it's the fact that he plays third base. And I think that there's a tremendous amount of value in when voting for MVP in what position a player plays, right? And so I know Judge has played some center field, but I don't believe it's been an above average center field. I also think he benefits from the short porch and right quite a bit in Yankee Stadium. That's not a reason to not vote him for MVP. But for me, the positionality of Ramirez and the steals and the fact that he puts the ball in play as much as he does is why he's my AL MVP up to this point in time. Interestingly, he's hitting the ball in the air even more than he ever has. He's pulling the ball a lot less and he's going to center and opposite field. He's got an above 90% contact rate. So if I'm choosing between those two players to have on my team, I'm choosing Ramirez over Judge because of position and because he puts the ball in play. There's no knock on Aaron Judge because I think he's been an incredible player up to this point this season. Do you have a number 3 off the top of your head?
I don't.
So my 3 was Rafael Devers. I don't have much to say about him other than he's just a super valuable, super awesome third baseman. And I wish he was on my team. So NL, who are your 1 and 2? Or are you engrossed in Andy Ashby right now?
The connection's really choppy. So yeah, you're cutting in and out.
Sorry.
It's okay. I was just going to tease you and say I think you should have to eliminate Devers on grounds he has a 4% walk rate.
You know what? When I saw that, I actually wasn't, yeah, it's hard for me to love a player with a 4.4% walk rate. Let's just leave it at that. I do roster Byron Buxton, and I don't know off the top of my head what his walk rate is, but it's probably pretty darn close. So your NL MVP.
NL MVP is Mookie Betts.
Mine too. What was it that you found that made him your MVP?
The fact that he scored 52 runs and hit 16 home runs already. Yeah, he's just it's just great to see him being himself after not looking completely healthy last year. His triple slash is incredible, but yeah, like that level of run production with steals, with power, with batting average, walking 12% of the time. You know, Machado is having a great year. His WRC plus is 176, whereas Betts is 178. And to your point about Ramirez and where they play, Machado's defense, I've watched a lot of Padres because I roster a lot of their pitchers, and I like Profar and I like Kim. And we roster Machado and TGFBI. So I've watched a lot of Padres. His defense is exceptional. He saves their pitching staff a lot of runs. So it was a hard choice for me. Because again, but Mookie also, I mean, I watched him throw out Brian Reynolds from right field, third base live when I went to see the Pirates and Dodgers. So his defense in the outfield is no joke, but obviously it's a little bit less impact playing in the outfield. But he's a Gold Glove and right as well. So it was close, but ultimately I felt those 52 runs and 16 home runs, whereas Manny only has 9 home runs and 38 runs. I had to give the nod to Mookie, but it was super close.
I'm right there with you. I had Betts 1, Machado 2, and Goldschmidt 3. The cool thing about Betts is if you look at his previous, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, his under the hood stats are almost exactly the same, right? Except for last year when he was hurt. He's just an incredibly consistent player, and what he's doing this year is basically what he's done 3 of the last 4 years. And so that to me was really cool to see that this isn't an anomaly. This isn't like Mookie Betts being anything other than just Mookie Betts. And to your point about Machado, I think so a couple thoughts. One is I think his defense is criminally underrated. I think he's always been an elite defensive third baseman. I think I could make the argument that he's been better than Arenado over his career. And I don't think that would be an argument that if you really examine their defense, that you could argue really too far one way or the other. But I think Arenado is seen as like the elite defensive third baseman of our generation, whereas I think Machado needs to be in that conversation. The other thing with Machado that I want to bring up is, he made the comment a couple of years ago about not running out grounders. Like that's not who he is, right? Do you remember that?
I do.
And he was really highly criticized for saying that and not running out grounders when he was in Baltimore.
Yeah.
But what's the one thing about Machado that made us draft him as high as we did in TGFBI? Do you remember?
Well, to me, the reason I valued him was his balanced profile, that he was going to give his power, speed, he was going to play every day. Well, that's a premium position.
So the play every day part was the part that we talked about the most.
Yeah.
Right. He plays 150, 155 games a year. He shows up one way or another, right? Which is the criticism of Fernando Tatis Jr. and tons of other players, right? Bryce Harper to a certain extent. Machado shows up every single game. And part of why he's able to show up every single game and produce at the level that he is, and you can count on him for 35 home runs, is that he doesn't pull a groin running hard to first every single time. So right. I feel like he's been given a bad rap for some of the things that he did when he was young. And the reality is he's a Hall of Fame third baseman, right? So yeah, he's my number 2. Betts was 1. It was really, really close, as you said. And as you said, the differentiator for me were the home runs and the runs scored. But Manny Machado is having an incredible year. And any kind of drop off from Betts will make Machado my MVP.
Agreed.
I love both players. I really love both players as much as I dislike Paul Goldschmidt. I love both of the number 1 and 2 for sure.
I agree.
All right, Cy Young, AL Cy Young. Who's your 1 and 2?
McClanahan is my number 1 and Gosman is my number 2.
Huh. Okay. Make the case for McClanahan.
My favorite stat is K minus BB,
Mhm.
and that is an area where he is leading the way in that stat. And he got his China. Let's see here. Just 1 second. Pull these stats up in a way that I can speak to this. I had to flip it over to pitching. Yeah, so his K minus BB is 31.2%. His K rate 36, walk rate 4.9. He has the innings. He has the best xFIP among the group, which is skills independent ERA, basically. I overlooked him a couple weeks ago. I said on the pod I thought Gosman was the leader for AL Cy Young, but he's logged more innings. The thing that Gosman done is he's been exceptional. He's really suppressed walks. His walk rate is half from McClanahan, but he's not striking out as many as Shane is.
Right.
His ground ball rate is increasing ground ball rate. He had yesterday he went like 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, gave up 2 runs. It was kind of like a ho-hum. Another great start out of McClanahan. I just don't see anyone in the AL that's having as good a year consistently, just every single game, game in, game out. I watched him pitch against Ohtani in early May. Was just really impressed with that was when the Angels had a full assortment of their lineup. They had both the young guys in the outfield. Rendon was in the lineup that night. He just owned those guys. The Angels have fallen off quite a bit since then, but at that time they were really flying high. But he's my AL Cy Young.
So I had Gosman 1 and Tarek Skubal 2. And so Gosman 5-3 with a 2.51 ERA, 2.48 xFIP, 1.04 WHIP, 61 innings, 59 hits, 6 walks, 70 Ks. What stood out with Gosman for me was the 2.5% walk rate, as you alluded to earlier, and the 16.9% swinging strike rate. He's changed his mix a little bit. He's throwing a little more split and slider than he did last year. He's throwing 70% first pitch strikes, which is pretty amazing as a starting pitcher. I was interested in his home versus road split because we talked a lot about him moving to Toronto, and that was why I downgraded him quite a bit. His home ERA is 3.21, but he's 1.91 on the road. McClanahan, I think those 3 pitchers, quite honestly, and you could add Nestor Cortez to the conversation, those 4 are, for me, on a similar level. I think you could make a case for any of them. Cortez was my 3, and he's got a 0.87 WHIP, and he's 5-1 with a 1.50 ERA, right? Skubal is 4-2 with a 2.15 and a 0.95 WHIP. He has 61 Ks and 58 2/3 innings. The reason why, so Gosman has the longest track record of any of the pitchers we talked about. And I think that's part of why he's my AL Cy Young winner. I think doing it in Toronto in that park is a big deal. I think doing it in the AL East is a big deal. And I didn't expect it from him. So maybe I'm overrating him because I didn't expect it. I also watched him on television quite a bit, and his ability to make a strike look like, or a ball look like a strike to a left-handed hitter with his splitter is why he's so successful. And I was just really, really impressed with that one particular pitch. Skubal, I think his success is really sustainable because he's become a sinker slider pitcher. His 4-seam fastball usage is way, way down. And he's done that with decreasing his walk rate and increasing his ground ball rate, which is all things that we want to see from pitchers. And he pitches in an incredible pitcher's park. So maybe I was thinking forward with my choices, but I think that I see both Gosman and Skubal really succeeding moving forward. But I have no qualms with McClanahan either. I think that he's having an incredible year. And as much as I love Tampa Bay pitchers, I think, as we talked about in the previous pod, there's a little bias in that I group them all together, and I don't know that any one of them will get enough innings to really qualify for any of these awards. I may be proven wrong.
I know that you think that, but he has the most innings in the American League other than Garrett Cole,
How many innings does he throw in?
64 and a third.
Okay.
Gosman has 61
Uh-huh.
and Google has 58.
I don't know that it holds up. I really don't. I think that their use of starting pitching is, I know we debated about this on the previous pod, but I thought about it quite a bit, and I really don't know that that'll happen. So when I pulled it up, I've got Robbie Ray at 65-2, Gilbert at 65, Montas 64-2. So he's what? He's sixth, which is still great. You're right. I'm wrong. You're right. But well, let's have this conversation at the end of the year and see what happens.
For sure.
I don't trust it. Who's your NL Cy Young?
Joe Musgrove.
I'm surprised. Who's your number two?
Sandy Alcantara.
Do you have a number three?
I don't.
You just trying to leave Zach Wheeler off on purpose or what?
Yes, that's it. Got me
You
10
own
out.
Alcantara, Musgrove, and I own Wheeler. All right, make the case for Musgrove, because Alcantara was my number one.
Yeah, so Joe has started 10 games. He has 10 quality starts. He is 6-0. The Padres haven't lost the game that he started. Even in the 4 games, he wasn't credited with a win. They won those games. Their team is one that's leaned on pitching and defense to win games. They are not a very good hitting team right now. And to me, he's been the leader of that group. Yu Darvish, whom I also am really fond of, has the name value and the recognition, but I think Musgrove has really been the one that's been the leader of that starting pitching group and has led that team to the record that it has right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason I chose him over Sandy is 6-2. He's pitched a little bit fewer innings, but he's also just been more inconsistent. Sandy's last 3 to 4 weeks of pitching has been exceptional, and he has a higher ceiling than Joe because of his velocity and swing and miss. However, I just couldn't ignore the fact that Joe, from jump, like I said, he's logged a quality start every single time out this year, whereas Alcantara really battled his command early on. And it's just been in the last 3 or 4 starts that his swing and miss has come along. So that consistency was the tiebreaker for me. But I was self-conscious to nominate both of them, given I roster both, but I did feel that based on the performance so far that they warranted that recognition.
I think that's fair. Musgrove, so of the 6 pitchers that I named for my top 3 in each, which were Gossman, Skubal, Cortez, Alcantara, Musgrove, and Wheeler, Musgrove has the highest CSW at 31.3%, called plus swinging strike. And I found that really fascinating because his 4-seam is not a pitch. So his 4-seam has a -2 run value as of right now, but it was a pitch that we saw as below average coming into 2022. It was his curve and his slider that were the 2 pitches that were plus. So the fact that he has the highest called plus swinging strike rate to me was really interesting. The other part that's interesting is his swinging strike rate is only 11.3%, which is the lowest since 2016. And I believe is just slightly above league average. And so he's getting a ton of called strikes currently. When you compare the 2 pitchers currently, they're really, really, really close. Alcantara is 6-2 with a 1.81. Musgrove is 6-0 with a 1.64. Both their whips are sub 1. Musgrove is walking less than Alcantara. Their K rates are really, really similar. Alcantara has a higher ground ball rate, but I think that's because he throws a sinker. I could go either way. I picked Alcantara probably because I think moving forward, I expect him to have a better season for the remaining 75% of the season. But I love them both. I also applaud our Musgrove pick in NFBC because we both predicted him to be an ace heading into this year, and I think our research was correct in that. Just a quick mention of Zach Wheeler. He's my number 3. He's 3-3 with a 3.16 and a 1.15 whip. Similar statistics: 6.2% walk rate, 27.5% K rate. His swinging strike rate is 12.4%, which is the highest of his career, but not great. But he started off really horribly. His first couple of starts made me worry about my acquisition of Zach Wheeler, and since then he's been lights out. It would not surprise me to see him at the top of this list by the end of the year, and he's doing it in Philadelphia with a horrible defense and a horrible home park. So kudos to you, Zach Wheeler. We'll see where you end up at the end of the year. So
Yeah,
you
and
have Musgrove and
I would say about all 3 of those guys as well. The things that to me that they all bring innings, like they're all going to pitch a lot of innings for their respective teams. And to me, that's something that also should be considered. And we just talked about that with McClanahan and where he would end up. That Wheeler pitches very deep in the games, as does both Musgrove and Alcantara as well.
Right. So we'll cover Rookie of the Year in a minute. I wanted to bring up something about Cy Young that I found really, really, really interesting. And I wasn't looking for this because of what our previous conversations, but it popped for me. All of the pitchers outside of Kevin Gausman throw a lot of pitches often. And so Gausman has what last year was the number 3 overall pitch in baseball, according to Savant Run Value, which was his splitter, for negative 23 run value, and the number 89 overall pitch, which is his 4-seam, which was a negative 10 run value. So he had 2 top 90 pitches, meaning he doesn't really need a whole lot else. But everybody else, so Skubal has 4 pitches he throws above 13% of the time, and 3 pitches he throws over 20% of the time. Cortez throws 3 pitches over 15% of the time. Alcantara throws 4 pitches over 23% of the time. Musgrove throws 4 pitches above 17% of the time. And Wheeler throws 4 pitches above 10% of the time in 21 and not over 9% of the time in 22. Point being, we come back to this every podcast, which is really, really quality starting pitching has to have 3 pitches. Kevin Gausman is the anomaly, right?
Yeah, he is.
He really, truly is the anomaly. Go look at his splitter, watch his splitter 100 times, and you'll see why he's the anomaly. But the reality is, if you are looking for quality starting pitching in fantasy baseball, look for the pitcher that has 3 quality pitches, 3+ pitches, and has command. I don't think it's rocket science. Relievers are different. Relievers can get through the order once with 2 pitches, but that 3rd pitch, the more and more we do research, the more I look at the numbers, the more I realize that 3rd pitch means everything to starters. It really, really does. And it just stood out for me when I was looking at pitch usage of the top 3 pitchers in each league. In my opinion, I realized that really it is about the 3rd and 4th pitch. Of course, you need the 1st and 2nd to be quality, but the 3rd and 4th pitch really, really matter. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I was just looking at, I had pulled up the numbers for Stuff Plus and Pitching Plus on the players I had mentioned, because you're talking about Gausman and him being so different. His Stuff Plus is 116, which is exceptional. One person higher than him, like McClanahan, who was my number 1, was at 120.
Right.
But his Location Plus was the best of the group between McClanahan, Musgrove, Alcantara. And then the Pitching Plus wise, it's Gausman and then McClanahan and then Musgrove and then Alcantara. Yeah, it was just with Musgrove, the reason he gets by is he has 2++ breaking pitches.
Right.
And he can locate both. And it's with the leaning towards breaking pitches, going away from fastballs, he kind of represents that in a big way, because his fastball is a below average pitch. But he's able to succeed at a high level because of the quality of his two, not only the quality of his breaking pitches, but actually has two of them.
Right.
They're really, really good.
I wonder if, so his fastball has a -2 run value so far this year. And I wonder if that's a product of his breaking pitches being so quality that you have to look for them and respect them, right? So that the fastball actually isn't a very good pitch, but it has a negative run value because the other pitches are so good.
Yep. Yeah, because he can throw them for strikes, and then
right,
that's
which I think
the thing.
supports the point that if you have 3 pitches that you can throw for strikes, the third pitch doesn't have to be great. You just have to use it to keep the batters honest, right?
Yeah.
It's funny how baseball's so cyclical, because we're going back to some really old adages that I remember hearing when I was a kid, like throw strikes and have multiple pitches that you can throw. And that's how you're a successful starter. I don't know. It was, like I said, super fun exercise to look at that, really telling, supported my love of George Kirby, and hopefully Caleb Killian in his upcoming start later on today. Who's your AL Rookie of the Year?
It's my turn to be distracted. Brian Hayes is up in the bottom of the 8th with the bases loaded and 2 outs.
All right. Do you want me to give my AL Rookie of the Year then?
They just brought in Ian Kennedy to face him. No, I'll do it. We can go ahead and have our fist fight now.
There is no fist fight, because I bet you I agree with you.
So you said AL?
Yep.
As Jeremy Pena was my first number 1, and Julio was my runner-up.
Okay. Can you guess what mine are?
It's Julio and then Jeremy Pena.
Nope. It's Jeremy Pena, then Julio.
I'll be damned.
Yep. So I have to admit, so full disclosure, I had Julio number 1 and Jeremy Pena number 2. And I started to type out their stats in my notes. And I looked at Fangraphs WAR, and I couldn't in good conscience call Julio number 1 and Pena number 2. Fantasy wise, I'd go with Julio because of the 15 stolen bases, right? But from just a straightforward standpoint, Jeremy Pena, so he has a 2 so Fangraphs has him as a 2.3 WAR player already, and Julio's 1.3, and much of that is his defense.
Sure.
But if I'm going to say that Jose Ramirez is my AL MVP, I can't in good conscience award Julio Rodriguez Rookie of the Year over Jeremy Pena if Jeremy Pena is playing short and Julio's playing center, right?
Right. Yeah.
I know Julio's played a pretty decent center field, but that's not, I have to be objective as much as I can be. The other thing is Pena's OPS is 816 and Julio's 731. Now, if we're talking rest of the season, check with me at the end of 2022, because I guarantee you Julio Rodriguez is the AL MVP. But as of right now, Jeremy Pena is hands down the AL MVP. I also really have enjoyed watching both players. I think both players are incredibly exciting. And people say this all the time, but baseball's in good hands with the young players that are coming up. And I think both of those players, including Bobby Witt Jr., who's my number 3, the AL has such incredible young players right now, and it's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I can't. I don't think we can give Pena enough credit for just coming up as a rookie and playing that level of defense and just having an impact from day one. Right. You mentioned Witt, who's someone else I considered and looked at, but he's just recently in the last couple of weeks, which is completely understandable because he's a rookie. He's learning big league pitching, learning the schedule, like learning big leagues, life at the big leagues. That matters. Right. These are young kids and young men, and but Pena's his impact from day one can't be overlooked to this point. As you said, this is not prediction. This is to this point who's been the most valuable. One
of the cool things about Julio and Witt is, for me, is their infusion of speed into the game. Because you watch either of those two, and it's just they're moving at warp speed. You watch Witt try to beat out a ground ball, and like he'll hit a ground ball to shortstop and beat it out for an infield hit because he's so fast. And Julio is, I don't know what he's like, the third fastest player in the majors for like home to first or something like that. I don't know. It reminds me of watching the Cardinals or the Royals in 1986, 1985, right? It's the baseball that I love, and they're in a lot of ways they're bringing it back. So those two for me are great, but Pena's numbers up to this point in time, he deserves the AL MVP for me. Anyone else you want to mention the AL?
No.
Who's your NL MVP or your NL Rookie of the Year? Sorry.
So I have two pitchers. I really couldn't find hitters that from rookies that I thought were really worthy of calling out. My winner was Mackenzie Gore, and my runner-up was Ashby.
So my NL MVP was, or NL, sorry, Rookie of the Year, I did again, is Mackenzie Gore. The other two I had were Keibert Ruiz and Christopher Morel. I did not have Ashby there, but I do think Ashby is deserving of being in the conversation. Is there anything you want to discuss about Gore? I think it's pretty, to me, Gore is pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, I mean, he's 1.4 WAR. He's 3-1. He started 7 games. He's appeared out of the bullpen once, logged 42 innings. Again, I already spoke to, the Padres having a really good, very respectable record, staying near the top despite missing their best player offensively, and how important pitching has been to them. And he's been a big part of that. They've had a lot of injuries in the back end of the rotation, and he came up and has filled that spot. It's not just held it down, but he's really excelled. So I just thought he was worthy of that. Ashby is doing more of that hybrid role, and has pitched 40 innings as far, whereas McGore is 42, but Gore's 3-1. So Ashby is going to be 1-4 after today.
Right.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see from here on out. I think those two could easily end up being the top two, and in the running at the end. We'll see.
I agree. I think Gore, I'm happy to see Mackenzie Gore have the success that he's had because of the obstacles or the speed bumps that he's encountered over the last year and a half or so. He's my number one. I had Keibert Ruiz too, in large part because I think playing catcher and being able to handle a pitching staff and still provide, some sort of positive contribution offensively is a big deal. He's probably going to peak as like a 110% Omar Narvaez. He's a contact hitter. His triple slash currently is 265, 327, 361. He has 1 home run. His OPS is only 688. He's got a couple of steals, but he's a contact hitting catcher who is pretty decent defensively. And so this reflects more, I think, of the lack of rookies in the National League as much as Keibert Ruiz being a star, because he's not. Right. The other one is Christopher Morel, who's very much a pop-up prospect, but his OPS is 810. From a fantasy perspective, he's hitting 262, 364, 440. Damn. So Christopher Morel, as that was cut off, 810 OPS, 77 plate appearances, obviously a better hitter than Keibert Ruiz as of this point, but someone who I don't know if his performance is going to continue. So I think he's worth mentioning, but I want to see it over the long haul to really crown him NL Rookie of the Year, or even second place in NL Rookie of the Year. Do you think Christopher Morel, have you watched him at all? Do you think he's going to end up being in the top 3 at the end of the year?
I've watched the Cubs. I'm trying to remember who I watched them against recently. I don't think he'll be there in the end, but we'll see.
Okay.
I certainly think they're in a position to give him playing time. So if that matters, as we said, there's not a lot of standout NL hitters right now. So they're in a position to let him play every day. And so if he continues to accumulate about top of the order, I could definitely see him being in contention for it. Yeah, what I remember about him specifically was that you sent that tweet or whatever when Contreras had told him to calm down and he hit that sack fly. But
Right.
yeah, I just know that he's brought a lot of energy for that team, and it's been a good player for them so far. But like you said, kind of popped up this year.
Right. So open forum. There's a question you wanted to ask last week and decided to table it for this week. What was that question?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you talked about Soto because this kind of correlates. So my questions are about closers and saves.
Okay.
So I have kind of a fun question, and then I'll have one that's more tactical,
Okay.
both around closers. So the first one is, do you like to watch your closers? So if you see, we talked about last time, players or pitchers that you tune in to watch. When you see your closers coming into the game, do you like to go and watch them?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I understand the question, and I understand that there can be a lot of nervousness or
Yes.
worry around your closer blowing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think overall, I want to watch all of my players play, and closers included. I think I want to see them succeed, but if they fail, I want to know why, right? Because it'll help inform my decision as to whether I want to keep that player or not. And there's a tremendous amount of nervousness. If Bednar is closing a game out or Robertson's closing a game out, yeah, I'm stressed. I don't enjoy that at all, but I'm still going to watch. Same reason why, like, if I have players playing in the ESPN Sunday night game, I'm going to play them, even if it's not always the right decision, because I want to see them play. But it doesn't mean it's not taking like a small sliver out of my life expectancy watching my closers, close the game out, or my players play on Sunday night. What about you?
Very well. I typically don't, because I just have had, I do feel like, I know it's completely irrational, but I feel like whenever I tune in, they struggle.
Right.
And especially if they like walk the first guy.
Sure.
I will just turn it off. I'm like,
It's hard. Probably was it 3 or 4 days ago, I was listening to the Pirates Dodgers, and I was listening to, we roster Bednar in TGFBI, right?
Right. And
I roster Bednar in our home league, and I'm listening, and Bednar gave up a lead to the Dodgers in the bottom of the eighth, I think it was. And I was just like, I was livid. It ruined my night listening to Bednar give up the lead. Of course, he gets the win in the end because the Pirates came back.
But 50 pitches.
Yeah, but it sucked. I was completely like, it literally ruined my night listening to Bednar give up a bunch of hits and a bunch of runs. So yeah, I think there is something different about your closer, and there's something different about watching your closer give up the save or give up the lead. But I'm still gonna watch. Like, that's just me. I'm still gonna watch.
I just speaking of Mark Melancon and closing, he's on to try to close it against the Pirates, and Brian Reynolds hit a leadoff single, so he has a man on already. I
cut Melancon, so that's good.
Yeah,
that was an example of a closer with horrible stats and horrible metrics, who still is in the role, who I gave up and was immediately snatched up by someone who needed saves. I think he's like the epitome of bad pitcher in the right role is going to get you saves and is going to absolutely destroy your whip, right? What's your fun question?
No, that wasn't my fun question. My tactical question was, can you have too many saves? That's my GM tactical question, because I use myself as example. I traded for Jordan Romano prior season. My goal is to go into the year with a 1-6 year closer,
right?
Knowing that because like we talked about, there's a limited number of guys who have that security, and then doesn't get the list isn't very long, and then the guys with who have good skills in that role are very small. So
Right.
knowing that I'm more of a skills based roster construction, trying to get 2 or 3, 4 other guys who have maybe had opportunities for saves, we're going to be exclusively for saves. But the way that my bullpen has shifted, I am struggling with holds, and I'm winning saves by pretty decent, like by 3 or 4 saves. So I'm starting to wonder, do I have too many saves? And it's so counteractive to like everything that we read and consume. It's like get saves, get saves, get saves, get saves, because they're so scarce or so hard to find.
Sure.
And I find myself in this position where hoping that Duran, for example, gets a hold, not a save, because I need holds.
Right.
Like all my guys are drifting to the 9th, and I'm wondering, do I have too many saves? And
So-
again, I'm asking you, can you have too many saves?
Yes, in our league with holds, yeah, 100%. But my immediate thought, and it's my only thought, is closers carry tremendous trade value in any fantasy league.
Right.
Trade the one that you believe in the least for something you can use, whether it's holds or a starter, or with Segura going down for you, like a legitimate, starting second baseman, whatever it is, trade one of your closers. Shit, trade Romano, right? Like trade someone who is worth something to somebody else to strengthen your team. Yeah, 100%. I think it's always good to have too much of a certain category or a certain position, because really what that becomes is a way to fill holes in other places. I'd love to have too many saves. I'd be happy to put out 14 trade offers for one particular player to either help me in the draft next year or strengthen my team this year. I wouldn't look for holds. I think holds are, my opinion is holds are too easy to find on the wire to actually trade for. Like I was on the wire today or last night, and I needed a reliever because JP Fireeisen went on the injured list. And I was choosing between Luis Garcia and Evan Phillips. Garcia has more holds. You look at Phillips under the hood and you realize like he's dominant.
Right.
And, those players are out there on the wire. So if it's me, I'm looking for offense. I'm trading one of those closers for offense to fill a hole, 100%. So no, I don't think there's such a thing as too many saves. There is such a thing if you hold on to those players. There's not such a thing if you actually trade one of them for value. Who are the guys you have that are getting saves right now? Just out of curiosity.
So the 2 guys that have secure roles are Romano and Barlow for Texas. And then Helsley is in a fluid situation and gets saves, and Duran is in a fluid situation and gets saves.
Okay.
So I have potentially 4 guys getting saves.
Does
And-
Helsley get holds?
Well, I'd like him to, but his last 2 appearances have been in the 9th inning.
Okay.
One that was a save and one that was a 4-run lead, so he didn't get credit for a save.
And Duran is SPRP, correct?
Yes.
So I would just hold on to Duran and let him, if it was me, I would hold on to Duran and let him just do his thing. And I would trade Helsley at the top of his value for offense. Like I would make offers to all 15 other teams in our 16 team league, including me, and make offers for offense, right?
Yeah.
Because
I've thought
really,
about it. Sometimes I wish I could hire someone to do trades for me, because I feel like there are so many guys who are better at trades than I am.
I think
yeah.
you're better at trades with certain people. I think we all are. We all have a handful of other managers who we relate to, we understand, we have good communication with, and those are the guys we deal with most often. But I would, if it was me and I had Helsley and I was good with saves, I'd be putting offers to 15 other teams. That's me. Right? I'd offer Helsley for like a 2nd round pick, a 1st round pick. I'd offer Helsley for, a top 10 second baseman and see if someone bites, but that's me.
Zach Sawinski just hit a 2-run home run to walk off Melanson.
That is the best news I've heard in a long time. I love it. That's
Oh
great.
my gosh. All right, you ready for cards?
Yep,
All right, so I have another opening day back. We've got this card already.
sweet. Wait
Jesse
just a
Winker.
second. I can tell by the pose.
Yep. I think we've gotten this one too. Jesus Luzardo.
Okay.
Is he going to be back this year?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't roster him, so I don't know.
Oh, this does not happen to me very often. This is legitimately, I've never heard of this person. Zach Lothar.
Oh, that's the Orioles pitcher, right?
Orioles, yes. You've heard
The
of him?
only reason I know him is I had him on the AAA shuttle in MLB The Show.
Okay.
That's the only reason why I know who he is.
It's a neat looking card. Brandon Lowe.
Oh, cool. I like him. Is that a limited card? If you look on the back, is it like 100 of 300 or something?
No, this does not say that.
Huh, okay.
This is kind of a joke. I'm not in the mood for this. It's a Kristen Yelich and it says bomb squad. I think you have to have more than 5 months to be on the bomb squad. I'm just saying.
Also, he was my pick he was the card that I got to predict when he hit a home run. And I think he struck out twice that day or something like that with the tops like scratch and sniff card that I got through 3 weeks ago.
Salty about that. Trevor McGill
Okay.
or Tyler McGill, pardon me. I don't know
Also, why can't Enoceris pronounce anybody's name?
He has a mental block.
He's worse than Bill Simmons.
He
He's
is.
so bad.
And he owns it too. He's like, I'm terrible.
He's so bad.
So I can tell he's self-conscious about it because he knows he's going to do it. And he tries hard not to. I feel for him.
It's pretty bad.
Last card, Eli Morgan.
He's
I don't
been
think
good.
he's not with the Guardians anymore, is he?
Yeah, he is. He's been good too. He's been really good, in fact. Oh, hold on.
I feel like every time they moved him onto the 7th or
I got
8th.
the Rays White Sox game on maximum value or maximum volume just now. I apologize.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh,
right.
Yohan Moncada's hitting 135 with a 399 OPS.
Did he hit a home run this week, right?
He's hit like 3 sac flies. I don't know about a home run.
Thought he had one this week.
He's killing me, man. I still love him, but he's killing me. Anyways,
well, that'll be on our next pod. List of players who are killing us. It'll be like
Right?
a whole 30-minute section.
man, here's to Caleb Killian start at 4:15 tonight. Super excited for his debut.
Throw strikes, young man. Throw strikes.
That's right. That's right.
All right, man. Good to talk.
It's a pleasure, brother.